August 1590. After 3 years away, John White returns to Roanoke Island to find his colony gone. 115 men, women, and children vanished. No bodies, no violence, only a single word carved into a post: Croatoan. For over 4 centuries, that single word was all anyone had to go on. Now recent archaeology is finally providing answers, and they challenge nearly every theory ever proposed. According to John White's own written journal, he stepped ashore on August 18, 1590, searching for the families he had left behind 3 years earlier. His search revealed an absence of struggle, ruined buildings, or human remains. Instead, the dwellings had been dismantled, and the settlement was enclosed by a high palisade of trees. Built like a fort, White recorded that 115 men, women, and children had vanished, leaving the site completely deserted. The only physical evidence left at the scene was a deliberate message. Carved into a prominent wooden post at the entrance of this palisade was the word Croatoan. Nearby, on a tree trunk, White discovered the letters CRO. There was no Maltese cross, the prearranged distress signal the colonists agreed to leave if they were forced to flee. This eyewitness log remains the starting point for the historical record, framing a cold case that has lasted for more than 4 centuries. The 1587 expedition was designed not as a temporary military garrison, but as a permanent agrarian community. Sir Walter Raleigh's plan called for the establishment of the City of Raleigh, a self-sustaining English foothold. The passenger manifest lists 117 settlers, including approximately 17 women and 11 children, among them the newborn Virginia Dare. This demographic composition shifted the colony's primary objective from resource extraction to long-term survival. Yet this civilian group inherited a legacy of local tribal hostilities left by previous military forces. Denied immediate military security and facing depleted provisions, the settlers encountered severe logistical isolation before their first winter. Understanding this fragile social structure is vital, as it directly influences how researchers evaluate their ultimate decision to relocate. White walked through the empty clearing, observing a scene systematically cleared of daily life. The dwellings had not been burned, but carefully dismantled, with heavier items left behind or buried. In a nearby trench, he discovered several of his own personal chests, dug up and ransacked, his books torn from their bindings, and his armor rusted by exposure. Beyond these ruined belongings, the physical evidence offered no sequence of events, no tracks, no abandoned weapons, and no signs of a hasty flight remained. The investigation was almost immediately halted by environmental pressure. A severe storm damaged the ship's anchors, and with food supplies dwindling, the crew refused to venture further. White was forced to abandon the search and return to England. This premature departure transformed a localized relocation into a permanent administrative void, leaving behind an empty space that speculative myth would soon occupy. 4 traditional explanations have historically filled the administrative void left by John White's hasty departure. The first, peaceful assimilation with the Croatoan people, fits the physical clue left on the palisade post. However, the contemporary English paper trail ends with White's journal, leaving this cooperative relocation unverified by written records alone. The second theory, a sudden massacre by local tribes, lacks physical support. As White observed, no human remains, no defensive battle debris, and no ash layers indicative of arson. A third scenario, a Spanish military strike, is similarly unsubstantiated. Spanish administrative archives from the era reveal that their naval patrols searched for the English outpost but never located it, and the physical site contained no Spanish weapons or personal belongings. Finally, while the dual pressures of disease and seasonal famine certainly threatened the settlers, starvation fails to explain why the entire settlement was systematically dismantled rather than abandoned in haste. Individually, these classic explanations each address a specific fragment of the Roanoke record, but none can reconcile the entire physical scene. Between 2015 and 2020, systematic excavations yielded the first physical evidence of a post-Roanoke English presence. At an inland site, designated Site X, located near Salmon Creek in Bertie County, researchers recovered English-made household objects from secure stratigraphic contexts. Under the direction of Nicholas Lachetti and the First Colony Foundation, excavations revealed Surrey, Hampshire borderware, North Devon baluster jars, and London redware. These ceramic types, analyzed by curatorial experts Beverly Strobe and Mary A. Outlaw, date precisely to the late 16th and early 17th centuries, falling out of production by the early 1620s. These diagnostic wares were recovered from sealed clay horizons between 30 and 70 centimeters below the surface, safely isolated from modern agricultural disturbance. 2 miles away at Site Y, a secondary survey north of the Chowan River uncovered more than 300 additional ceramic fragments and animal bone refuse, indicating a sustained domestic presence. This chronological window is supported by absolute dating. Radiocarbon analysis of charcoal from these same sealed layers, calibrated using the IntCal 20 curve, yielded dates centering between 1580 and 1620. Optically stimulated luminescence dating of the surrounding sand layers confirmed sediment deposition occurred approximately 400 years ago, matching the historical time frame of the 1587 colony. 50 miles away on Hatteras Island, researchers documented a separate archaeological assemblage under the coordination of Professor Mark Horton. Here, researchers found over 200 English artifacts, including lead shot, tin-plated buttons, and leather shoe buckles, mixed directly with native Algonquian materials. Chemical analysis of the lead shot confirmed a European origin, while the discovery of hammer scale and iron flakes in the island's middens indicates high-temperature forging, a metallurgical technology that did not exist among indigenous populations before European contact. The strength of these findings rests not on a single spectacular object, but on the spatial and material patterns linking these distant sites. Rather than representing a single community relocation, the evidence indicates that the colonists divided into smaller, dispersed groups. These projects follow strict ethical guidelines. The First Colony Foundation and the Croatoan Archaeological Society operate under formal agreements with descendant communities and tribal representatives, ensuring that excavations respect ancestral grounds, adhere to federal preservation standards, and incorporate local historical stewardship into the scientific record. The cumulative archaeological pattern points away from a singular, catastrophic event. Instead of a sudden annihilation, the physical evidence indicates a gradual process of relocation and assimilation that took place over several years. The settlers did not vanish together. They likely fractured into smaller, dispersed groups, adapting to the terrain and establishing cooperative relationships with local communities to survive. This perspective treats the Roanoke colony as a divided community rather than a lost population. Fragmented bands of survivors moved in different directions, some traveling inland toward the Chowan River basin, while others went south to Hatteras Island. They brought with them their household goods and tools, leaving scattered but clear material traces in native villages. Yet, the material record has clear limits. Archaeology cannot trace the exact path of every individual survivor, nor can it reconstruct a complete timeline of their movements. The specific fates of Eleanor Dare, her daughter Virginia, and the other named colonists remain entirely outside the reach of physical proof. In forensic historical inquiry, recognizing these boundaries is important. Gaps in the data are not failures of research. They represent the exact point where verifiable evidence ends and speculation begins. Uncertainty is not a weakness in the historical record, but a reality of the passage of time. Responsible history stops where the evidence stops, leaving the remaining silences as they are. Please subscribe to support more evidence-based historical investigations. Today, the soil of North Carolina slowly corrects the myth. The material evidence points not to a sudden disappearance, but to a quiet reality of human adaptation and survival. As science uncovers their fate, our early history is redefined. Subscribe for more evidence-based historical investigations.